Welcome, folks. Good morning, good afternoon. Yet another day, another episode of the Auto Trends podcast coming in hot. Gideon Williams, your co-host with Lucas Welk. We are very fired up to be here yet again. It is absolutely an honor to serve you, to serve the industry, to serve the great distributors, the manufacturers, the sellers of our industry. We wouldn't be here if we did not love it. We wouldn't be here if we did not want to see the industry move forward very aggressively for the betterment of all involved, from consumers to the manufacturing, to make sure profitability. We've seen a leak in the boat. I report a leak in the boat. We are seeing Auto Anything. They went out of business. We're going to talk a lot about that today. We're going to talk a lot about the trade, what's happening in the trade market. We have a little bit of a, should we sound the alarm bell on trade? I want to talk about kind of some of the bigger online e-tailers and why they have a positive or why they have a negative reputation in the market and what is driving that. So without further ado, it is pretty exciting to come on and just talk a good bit about the automotive e-tailers, parts industry, etc. But without further ado, Lucas Welk, what's up, buddy?
How are we doing, Gideon? How are we doing? Another
Doing
exciting
good,
week this
man.
week?
Yeah, doing good. Actually, it's been a freaking annoying day, to be honest with you, and I think you may have had probably the similar situation. My freaking dog started, something happened to his stomach. He was like, I don't know, he was like convulsing. So my wife made me take him. Yeah, made me take him to the vet late last night, and get smacked around for a $1,500 bill just for the doctor to come out and say, I don't know what's wrong with him. He's fine.
Right. Yeah. And what kind of dog is that?
Golden Retriever.
Oh, very nice.
I'm starting to think he was fake. I'm starting to think he was faking it for a couple of freaking snacks.
Right.
Fucker.
I got a French bulldog.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right on.
So
Right on. Nah, but everything's other than that. Everything's going good. Pretty excited to be here. How about yourself, man? What's been up in your world?
It's been a busy week, I'd say. I think both of us have had a busy week. So happy to see the week wind down, actually. And I've got my little beverage here to celebrate the week winding down.
Hey, there you go. There you go.
So yeah.
Awesome.
So
yeah, no, that's great, man. Yeah, no, that's great. Well, as we dive into it, I mean, we look ahead. I think when we start to talk about, the online retailing, I think we start to talk about like what's happening in the industry. I think it's a really exciting time. And honestly, I think what's more importantly is when we look at, kind of the leaders in the industry, Amazon, the eBay, the Rocks, carparts.com, carid.com. Again, they just took a $35 million round of funding acquired by Fifth Star, which is crazy. And what I'm struggling with, even look at like Auto Anything, they went out of business, founded in 79. What's driving that? And also, I mean, you see a lot of it. Like it's crazy because they like RockAuto. Like there's not a lot of positive juju by the manufacturers and distributors. And I think it's kind of interesting for us to talk about that.
No, I think so as well, because we get a lot of questions on that, and I think Gideon, you're a lot more in tune, especially with RockAuto. And I was going to ask you, what do you think is the big attraction to them, or why are they so successful? What makes RockAuto, or how did they get from where they started to where they are today? Were they just the first? Were they, the initial leaders in the market, and then they just kind of carried that success to where they are now? And
yeah, no, that's a good question. I really so I think let's go back and look at like the history of parts commerce. So we talk about it a lot, but the biggest problem with parts commerce in the 90s and 2000s was channel conflict, and manufacturers weren't making decisions, right, to have a direct consumer model, because distribution would typically throw their hands up in the air and say, no, you're taking my market share, right? Because they're not getting the sale. And so what that did is that conflict of interest created really like a lack of information, right, in the automotive, right? It's like information that's been sworn to secrecy. You have to go to a parts store to get some guy who is going to look at the part. And so what Rock did is like they were founded in 99, and they were ultimately an eBay seller. That's what's crazy.
Yep.
Is if you look at a lot of
Right.
these online players, with the exception of, say, Amazon, like I was a part of one of the very first automotive contracts with Amazon, and at the distribution level. And, everyone there was like, well, I'm not going to sell to Amazon. Nobody's going to sell to Amazon, right? They're not in the industry. Well, and I know we're bouncing around a little bit, but Amazon was really smart. And what they did was they like they don't adhere to MAP. They basically tell everyone to go F themselves, right? They don't, that's kind of what they do. And which I think it's a positive and a negative, I guess. I mean, their success is their success. Bezos is flying around in a, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But what happened was sellers would come on Amazon and they'd pull in these automotive parts catalogs, and they would either be scraped, they would be shit, they would be crap quality. And so what happened was the big manufacturers would look at that and be like, holy shit, like this is our product and it looks like shit, right? The data's bad, the images are blurry, but this is our product and we're proud of it. So why don't we just directly provide Amazon our catalogs? Well, Amazon's policy is, well, once you give them the catalog, it's their catalog. It's not yours anymore. Like they steal, highway robbery.
Right.
So really what has happened there is manufacturers started to do business, and then there's volume there. And then they start to engage from a business perspective. And now they're all selling products into Amazon FCs. They're selling products, through their FBA, through third party.
Yep.
But margin erosion at its finest, right? Because of chargebacks. And okay. But back to the RockAuto. So RockAuto took a little bit of a different route. Is they knew automotive well, right? They knew the landscape well. Yep. So when they went to license cataloging, probably early in the game, it was expensive, right? Catalog at the time, it was expensive. Yep. So they started to build out their own catalog. And if you talk to any distributor that's been fulfilling for Rock, they'll tell you Rock was never Rock, right? Like RockAuto was not RockAuto today. Sure. But what the problem and what it's created over time is, yes, I don't know. Obviously it's not, they're not a public company, so this is not public information. But my sense is they do just over $2 billion in sales. RockAuto.com is roughly $2 billion, and they don't own a part. They don't own a part. They don't stock a part. Right. And what they do, and this is where I think, when we look at the industry, they've had a good run, but I think their run is going to slowly come to an end. Maybe not to an end, because once you get the business, it shows up and you have the end consumer. They have the end consumer very well, but the margin erosion that happens at Rock is gnarly. Like, it's insane. Right. If you talk to any distributor or manufacturer, they do not have a positive outlook on RockAuto.com for obvious reasons, right?
So what's making the consumers go there, Gideon? Why are they so successful, say, even till now? Why are consumers still ordering from them?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So it's pretty simple. So when they got denied early in the game on like their cataloging piece, like to go out and basically buy a catalog from a third party, it was pretty high. The price was very high, and they ended up starting to build out their own catalog. And so when you go on, like, and I'm going to go on it right now, but when you go on rockauto.com, it's quite a shit experience. I mean,
I've been there. Yeah.
Very well known. It's not like, whoa, these guys are cutting edge. It's honestly very shit. So what that tells me is, obviously they don't invest in the future. They invest in their catalog, but they're not interested in like being next level tech, right? They're not interested in, what they do really well is their catalog, and then the order parsing from when I buy it into a distributor. And so what makes people go buy from them is they've done a very good job on developing their catalog to get to the right part, right? Which that's the objective in automotive. As a DIYer, they have a massive offering, right? So think on the back end of RockAuto. They have distributors, right? WDs, which most part sellers have a WD, and they have, 12, 15, I don't know the exact number, but maybe 20, maybe more. I don't know. And they go into those distributors and they create a partnership. And obviously I've been a part of some of this stuff, and it's astronomical on the pricing that they want. So what happens is when you combine the breadth of inventory, okay, when you combine their own kind of model on the cataloging side, and then when you combine the distributors, they create this volume that they can move from distributor to distributor, right? Very quickly, seamlessly. So if a distributor A starts to raise price because they need margin, distributor B will pick up that volume because they'll maybe be more price competitive. And then it becomes a fighting game. But some distributors in the online retail, if you talk to all distributors, they want to diversify away from Rock. They're pissed. Like, it's just annoying. My other piece of it that blows my mind is manufacturers. Manufacturers, like, Rock's not good for our industry, man. Like, I hate to be like this.
It's a race to the bottom kind of thing. It's a race to the bottom. When you get
as quick as possible. But here's the other piece. It's not only just a race to the bottom. And I've had many, many conversations with manufacturers, and I'm blown away how scared they are. And you can't grow and build a business through fear. I don't believe that at all. It's actually that's actually a recipe for fucked, right? For lack of a better word.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
Yeah, like my philosophy in business in general is eliminate fear from your arsenal and believe in yourself like nobody's ever believed in you before. Those two pieces right there, you can learn anything, you can do anything, you can be who you want, you can develop, you can build relationships, eliminate fear, and believe in yourself like you've never believed in yourself before. I believe those two are the pieces. So when we look at, so I'll tell you here, Lucas, this is exactly what happens. So manufacturers, if they make a decision to potentially do their own direct consumer model or something where Rock and leadership there, those guys are freaking clowns. I mean, I say they're clowns, but they've obviously built a business. But the second you make a decision as an auto manufacturer, Rock on Monday will say, I'm pulling your line from our site.
Okay.
Like that quick.
Right.
But
gotcha. Yeah.
Like what? Like what? Okay. So you want to do that. But here's the thing is, in my opinion, I mean, we look at all of these part sellers, we look at Amazon, and we'll talk about eBay and carparts.com, carad.com. We look at other ones. There's a lot of other ones. They struggle in certain areas. But when we just talk about the model of Rock, it's, for one, not in the best interest, certainly, of the industry, right? It's not in the best interest, certainly, of the manufacturer, because if the manufacturer makes a leadership move and then Rock has a reaction, everyone's all fearful.
Right.
Distributors are so fearful that volume is just going to go away, and they've built teams around that volume coming to them, right, at very low margins. So, like, I can't confirm or deny, but there's a lot of chatter that there's certain distributors that have been over hedged or over their order volume has become way too high from Rock and Amazon, and their profitability is struggling. Therefore, you can't have growth levers. Therefore, you can't find investments. It's a house of cards.
Right.
You know what I mean?
How do you compete with them? If you're an online e-tailer now, let's say, just starting out, or even one that's established, let's say, for example, how do you compete with each other? Like, what's the best strategy there? What do you do? I mean, you don't want to just obviously compete on price. You don't want to.
You can't repeat on price. I think
branding, it's marketing, it's customer service, reputation.
A lot of it has to do with marketing and tap into also the international market. Like, so what I don't really know anything on how they think about their marketing. Obviously, their marketing commercials are just little little
Of course.
drawing guys. It's very simple. It probably costs them $500 to do a commercial, and then they just pay for the TV time.
Yep.
But I think you have to win on SEO. I think you have to
Yep.
win on customer service, certainly, but Rock's got good customer service.
Sure.
I think you have to win on your niche. I think you have to win on who you are. I think you
Yep.
have to win on the things that matter, the incremental things.
That's right.
But what also is playing into your favor as a manufacturer, a parts seller, is that, I mean, I talk to a lot of distributors. They are all looking to diversify away from Rock. Right? So,
And I think it's how do they do that? They're probably sitting there just as maybe if we were distributors or we're, a brand new parts manufacturer, we think, well, we want to get our product out there. We want to get our name out there. We want to get, selling it. And at least something is better than nothing. Maybe we're cash strapped and we think, what other choice do we have? We have to go to RockAuto. What else are we going to do? We need some revenue. We need some, some visibility out there. And
yeah, well, what needs to happen, I mean, and this is across the board, but in parts commerce need to be represented by an additional competitor, right? Like
Yep.
we need more competition that represents bigger volume.
Yeah.
I think that's the first step, right? So from a distributor, and I've talked to many distributors that are like, I don't understand why they're not open. I mean, I've presented really nice opportunities to many of them. But if you're a distributor, you need to be open-minded to big time partnerships or anything that can diversify that model from a seller perspective. Now, a seller perspective, there's plenty of market share here, let's look. If we look at the automotive aftermarket, 385 billion, right?
Yeah.
2025 is 400 billion. Now, a lot of that's jobber and a lot of that's, repair facilities and whatnot, but that's a lot of volume, right? And so we have to understand that volume is changing. Like there's opportunity cost, but the volume's changing, and where it's going is changing. Think of our techs, and I'd love for us to talk a little bit about the techs as well, because I know we got some cool things happening. But like Mike Rowe, this is Mike Rowe. Sounds alarmed over scary trade worker shortage. Yeah, man, because people aren't going into trades. You know what I mean? They're not going into trades, but also, everyone just wants to be an influencer or some bullshit, man. Like, get out of here with that crap, man. That ain't gonna work. Like,
and I don't think, I think there's a massive misconception. And even when I first got in the industry, if you said to me auto technician, when I first got into this, working with you and stuff like that in this industry, I would have thought, okay, that's a very low paying, that's bottom of the barrel. You are at the very bottom of things. There's no room for growth, or you're going to be stuck there making this minimum wage type of thing. And then boom, you look into it. And some of these techs, what they're making. And we're talking to these dealerships and whatnot all the time. And I was absolutely flabbergasted, when I first learned. And you're thinking, wow, this is a proper career. And people take this for, what they're doing for granted. But they're making large sums of money. More, and correct me, Gideon, if I'm wrong. But I've talked to a few dealerships that, well more than 100 grand plus per year if you're willing to work.
It is absolutely an opportunity that, as an industry, we actually need to level up and lift up the technician.
Yeah.
We need to create a sexiness. We need to create this entire model that that builds them up, right? And that's, you're 100% right. Like, your conception is completely wrong, right? And I think it's common for that to happen, for the technician to be lowest of the totem pole, the dumb idiot, the guy that can't, come on, get that shit out of here, man. Enough with
It's
that
the same thing
bullshit,
as a
man.
plumber. It's the same thing as a plumber. It's
Yeah.
the same thing as an electrician. It's the same thing, any of those guys in the trades. And I mean, a lot of them are sitting back laughing at everybody else thinking, right, I don't care what you think of me. You think I'm only a technician. You think I'm only here fixing your pipes. Meanwhile, check out my tax return and I'm probably making a lot more than what you are, So they're sitting
Well,
back thinking, I don't give a shit, laugh at me all
yeah.
you like, but,
I
but at the same time,
Well, also, we need to change the way we think about technicians as well. If you think of the technician in the 80s, everything was like it's combustion engine, right?
right.
Engines today are computers. You're almost more of a computer engineer or like a computer technician. Sure, you have, the basic components, but like we look at, I mean, there's like hydrogen. I actually was a part of a conversation with the CEO of a company, and he was talking about SEMA and Apex, right? And he was talking about, okay, EV. Like if everything just went to EV, SEMA and Apex, which is the um SEMA and Apex is like the heart of automotive. It's global, right? It's global. It's a global
Mhm.
trade show. So if everything went to EV, 70% of those companies would be wiped out. So they either have to reinvent themselves or not. Is that a viable option? I think no. I think
Yep.
no. And they're talking a lot about hydrogen, right? So I just think going in as a technician, and this is why and I think, you and I talk a lot about the Auto Trends podcast and being really tight and really close with the technicians and supporting them at every level from a funding perspective, a persona perspective, a everything
Yep.
perspective,
Yep.
is that it's really a sexy job, right? And we need more of them. But I think it'll be interesting to see how all of that shakes out. But that also parlays into how our buying behaviors are changing because so when you look at digital commerce, if it's me and I'm a manufacturer, I'm a parts seller, I level up digital 100%. I invest heavily in what that looks like, strategize, really be very clear. Use your
Yep.
distributors as fulfillment sources. Enable a
Correct.
direct consumer. If I'm going to go out and acquire a new company, I'm going to try to service the entire vehicle from the braking components to anything under hood, to heating and cooling, because I want the consumer, and I think who does a really good job of that from a portfolio perspective is the Tenneco, is driving the Tenneco.
Right.
They have, 30
Yep.
plus brands from Legacy Champion to the Moog suspension to the, to the Wagner brakes, right? So they have and that's what they're, to the, even the Rancho Performance and the, you know,
Right.
um, and so I think that that's critically important when we start to think about parts commerce in the future. I'd heavily invest there. But like,
Absolutely.
not to get sidetracked from, like, let's look at the historical time. Okay, so Amazon got going in 2009. No one was willing to sell to Amazon. Now everyone sells to them. Okay, we should have some accountability testing there, right? Everybody who said we're not going to sell to them are now selling to them. Okay, they ate crow there. Catalog, they won't. They push it. eBay obviously is the leading category. So these are all marketplaces, and there's a high acquisition cost.
Sure.
So we look at Rock. Rock is margin erosion. They're pitting everybody against each other. Nobody's happy to work with them, but they work with them. And then I don't know, man. Rock bothers me, man. They're just
Right.
slimy, dude. They're just slimy, man.
Right.
Like, it's just
They've just
I've
yeah.
never talked to anybody that's like, yeah, fuck yeah, I love Rock, man. I love
Right.
working with
Right.
them. They're great.
Right.
No, everyone operates out of
Right.
fear. It's all
Right.
fear
Right.
based.
Yep.
And
I
the
think they,
two
they've just
business
been around that
rules.
long enough.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, no, they've just been around long enough, and a lot of the legacy brands in any industry, if you've been there long enough, you might not be the biggest or you're the best at what you do, but people not trust you, and I'm talking from a consumer point of view, but they just know you. So, and what's that saying? I think we've said it before. Nobody's got fired for hiring IBM. And I used to have a technology company when I was in the Middle East, and somebody used that, phrase on me as well. And actually, we did get the contract, but the guy that I was negotiating the contract with, we were up against IBM, and luckily we did get it. But he used the phrase as well. Nobody got fired for hiring IBM, and we were kind of a nobody, but
Mm-hmm.
IBM was a somebody. So obviously, it's a safe choice for an organization to hire them or go with them or buy from them because they're trusted. So even if that procurement guy said, right, Lucas, we're going to go with IBM, if they completely fucked it up, he wouldn't be held responsible because he'd be like, look, I hired the best. They've been in business how many years? Obviously, they've done
Totally.
huge contracts, wildly successful. Now, when they hired my company, if we would have fucked it up, his boss would have came to him and said, what were you thinking? You didn't hire IBM and you hired Lucas's company. No wonder we fucked this up. So there's that safety net. I think that's there as well.
Well,
That
you
you
get in
just get over time.
yeah, you get it corporate America, and everyone's looking to pass the buck. Everyone's looking to pass the buck, man. Right?
Exactly.
It's not me. Well,
Exactly.
I hired the best, and that's and IBM. I mean, they capitalized on
So,
Y2K, and they've capitalized on a lot of, bullshit. But I think that's a lot of it. But this is, I think, like I think carparts.com does a really good job because they're a little
yep.
bit of a hybrid model. They have distribution, right? They've got facilities. So they
Yep.
own distribution, which is important. That's where I think that they'll survive and be a leader. But one thing I
Yep.
think is pretty interesting is like CarID.com. They went public in 2000. What was it? 2002?
Um,
Yeah, it was
something
2002.
like that.
Yeah, it was 2002. Yeah, because I remember
Right.
I did a big partnership with them, and I remember them. They went public. That was the worst
Right. In
decision they ever made.
2020, I think it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was
Something
right.
around there anyway.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. That's right. 2020. They went. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I recall that because I was involved in that heavily, and then 3 years later they filed for bankruptcy in 2023, and
Right.
so to the average eye, you're like, oh shit, what'd they do wrong? Well, I know it's simple. They have no control because
Right.
they're parsing volume out to other distributors, which distributors who are working with the Rocks, the Amazons, the car parts, every meeting you go into is about price and it sucks and you're
Right.
annoying. You're
Right.
like, fuck this, man. Like, this isn't real
Yep.
business. All you ever
No.
tell me is if you lower the price, we'll give you more volume. Well,
Exactly.
yeah. I mean, if I
Exactly.
lower my grandma's age, she'll be healthier.
Exactly. Exactly.
If my grandmother had
Exactly.
wheels, she'd be a bicycle. I mean, fucking hell,
Exactly.
man. What does that
Exactly.
even mean? Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
granddad would still be here if he was
Eh,
about 30 years younger. Like,
Exactly.
okay.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
Like,
And I mean,
okay.
of course, there's that segment that get caught up on the price. There's always going to be those people that are just price, price, price. But I think, more now, people are not so much looking at the price. I mean, obviously, to a certain extent, you're not going to buy, something wildly expensive if you can't afford it. But people are more looking at, quality. If we're talking car parts, quality, safety. Is my family going to be safe with this? Is it a quality part? How long is it going to last? Does it have a warranty? Is it, how good is the customer service? How good, I think, and what are they doing from a social aspect? The company, what are they doing to give back? What are they? So there's all these other avenues rather than just price. If you're only focusing on price, well then go to China, you know,
Yeah.
and compete
Exactly
with
right.
those lads.
That's right. Well, here's the
Um,
thing is, Lucas, and I'd your take. Has anybody ever like as a consumer in automotive parts, nobody ever asks for lower prices.
right?
Like the
No,
feedback has
right,
never been, damn, zone's too expensive. Damn.
right,
I mean, you have some Pet Boys, I think, was expensive back in the day. I always felt like they were really, really expensive. And I know they had some changing guards and leadership there. And next thing you know, I remember Pet Boys used to be awesome, like when I was like really young. And then
right.
when I kind of got a little older with my dad, he would always bitch about it's like double the price. Like, and I think they had some leadership changeover. I actually know what happened there. I'm
Right.
not going to share here because it's whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's my point is like I there was never any price gouging, like relatively speaking. There's always some, right? But the consumer base didn't ask for better prices.
Right.
This is a
That's right.
self-inflicted issue.
It is.
And
Yeah.
I was in a meeting with with a big manufacturer. They're out of the Panhandle, Yeah, in Florida, and they said, look, we've built out, we've laid out this entire profit,
Right.
um, like profit model for distribution and e-tailers, et cetera. He
Right.
said the second we implement it, everything goes right back to the bottom, and then WDs are pissed off about margin.
Right.
That's because Rock is basically pitting them up against each other, and that tells me that the consumer did not ask. Excuse me, man, I'm burping up everything. The consumer did not ask for any price relief. RockAuto is just being greedy as shit. And they're saying, well, we don't adhere to anything. And then they're basically saying, fuck the industry. I don't care if you make money or not, but we're RockAuto. And if you do anything, I'm going to pull your line off. That's really
Yeah.
poor business practices.
It is. It is. Yeah, yeah. No, it absolutely is. And when you're only competing on price, like even when I go to buy something, or I think any consumer now, if it's cheap, I associate cheap with crap. Even if it's not crap. But if I'm buying a new TV, and especially here, when I'm living in Southeast Asia, my house, there's tons of brands that I don't know anything about, and they'll be dirt cheap. Like I just bought a set of headphones, and it would have been, let's say, in US dollars, $6. And I'm asking the guy, I was like, no, dude, I'm looking for a little quality, little earbuds, just plug in with a wire type of thing. I don't want shit, and he's like, no, very good brand. And I was like, dude, it's $6. No, he's like, it's very, very good. I promise, it's very, very good with a good microphone. And I use them every day for $6. But because he said they were $6, I was like, dude, you're selling me something, a sack of shit here. But no, then I use them. But if he would have said, oh, these are brilliant, man, but unfortunately they're 75, they're $100 for these ones, I'd have been like, oh yeah, give me those. Those must be good. I just assume they're good because they're expensive. So why are good quality brands competing to the bottom and selling themselves short and putting their brands, it's like Starbucks. If Starbucks started selling their coffees for 20 cents a cup, you'd be like, Jesus, they must have really fucking lowered the quality on the coffee
Yeah.
beans
Are you
here,
even putting coffee beans in there?
yeah, I'm not buying that shit. And it could be the
Right.
exact same coffee versus, you're charging whatever, $15 a coffee. And you'd be like, oh, this is the best shit I've had in my life because it's $15. But meanwhile, it's the same thing. So yeah, I think, a lot of manufacturers are selling themselves short when they do that.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I mean, I think we look at, like you look ahead at what do we think the future is. I think when we look at who's been successful in e-commerce, it all goes back to they did a really good job on cataloging. Like I think
Right.
when you look at Auto Anything, as what I've always discussed on that piece was Auto Anything was always trying to cut corners and go around and be very, third party. Manufacturers don't like it when people step on their data and they don't give it to them direct, right?
Of
We
course.
need to have sound business practices in that regard. Um,
Absolutely.
but a lot of it is around how the cataloging works, because if you think of our industry, they're just looking for, if something happens, all I'm trying to do is get to the right part. I don't really care how I get to it.
Right.
And that's where I think Rock's, done a good job at. I think, Amazon's done a relatively good job. eBay Motors, but eBay Motors bought WHI, right? Like they hedged that. They basically bought their way
Right.
into that category. I don't think they
Yep.
did any secret sauce that said, oh, wow, eBay's next level. No, they kind of bought their way into it. But again,
Right.
everybody that we're going to is marketplace or margin erosion, right? So those are like the common traits, is like marketplace or margin erosion. But what is happening is I think we're going to see more manufacturers begin to look. Well, I mean, I know it's already happening, is they're going to begin to look at owning more of market share to where they have that more one-to-one relationship with the consumer. But then as the volume builds up, you just drop off that volume to your distributor partners. So if you look at the path to fulfillment from
Yeah.
Amazon, granted, Amazon has their own they have their own FC, so they're buying the product, but they're annoying because they're price. I mean, you're making no money on
Right.
that shit.
Yep.
But if we look at all of the paths on how the parts get to a fulfillment, it all goes to a distributor to
Yep.
some degree, one way or another, right? And what's going to happen is you're going to probably even see, I think, manufacturers come together in partnership as well. So, like, say, for example, let's say you are a brake manufacturer, right? I'm a brake manufacturer, and let's say, Lucas, you are under the engine cooling, right? So you have, all the radiator cooling components. So you and I get together and we say, hey, well, let's do some awesome parts program, right? That we own. You
Yep.
support those brands. Okay, well, we need suspension. Okay, all right. Let's go out and find a suspension partner, right? So what we do is we compile partnerships together to take kind of a commerce program if you
Yep.
don't want to only do your own brand, right? So I think there's some levers there, but the fact of the matter is that the volume, it's going to get to a distributor one way or another. And once that begins to happen, which it's not far off, like it's already like in the move, it's moving, is leverage and online empowerment will decrease greatly, and it was diminishing with Amazon, eBay, Rock. CarParts.com is a little different, man, because they have their own distribution. So that actually might help them. It will help them for sure.
Yep.
And then Car ID, I just don't know. I don't know, man. Car ID, they took 35 million in funding. I'm not convinced. I mean, because if you look at, like, here's the thing, is like, if you look at like growth strategies and all these like online sellers, it's always like, we're going to expand our offering. I don't know
Right.
that. I mean, is that really going to do it? Maybe.
Right. Exactly. Right.
You need consumers, man. You need
Exactly.
consumers.
Exactly.
And, Parts Geek as well. We're leaving them out. Like, they're a little bit of like, if you go to partsgeek.com, like, it's like it's similar type of like as Rock, right? It's
Right.
very,
Yeah, I haven't
it's
been
just,
there for a while on Parts Geek, but I was
yeah.
there before, but I haven't been there
Well, it's a similar type of,
lately.
it just looks like it's selling parts since 2008, right? So
Right.
2008, they launched the site. I don't know. I
I
mean,
think
they
now,
support everything, but
they you could get away with that stuff before, and I think that's fine. Even RockAuto, I mean, I have no idea, who, actually their consumers are right now, but I would say their consumers have been the same consumers for a long period of time. I would
yeah,
say that based on the site and stuff they have now, they're not attracting the younger generation, new consumers, new customers. I would say they're heavily relying on those legacy customers that have been customers for many years now. But I think where the new guys are going to take hold is by taking advantage of having these new sexy looking sites with these features, with taking advantage of AI. And we talked about that before. Is if I go online and I'm ordering some parts for the car, now with AI, it's already taking into consideration, right? Okay, he's buying these parts. So in
yeah,
the suggestions area, it should say, right, chances are if he's buying these parts, here's what's going to go wrong next. It's going to be A, B, and C. So they're already down there. Or because he's buying these parts, he obviously is going to need these to go with them, or here's some great
yeah,
suggestions.
yeah,
So with AI, it should be, and these part sites should be taking advantage of that and capturing these email addresses, their information, so that let's say they're buying whatever part, we know in a month or two, okay, they're going to need this. And right before they need it, boom, a week or two before, boom, suddenly they get an email, they get a message, they get whatever they get. Shit, I do need that. Or, how did they know I needed that? Or, and that's taking advantage of AI. That's
yeah.
really
Like
taking advantage of,
predictive maintenance.
yeah. And I don't look at that as being a problem for anybody. I don't look at that as being an inconvenience for the consumer, because I would love to get that message and say, shit, oh, I did need that part. And you know what? I just seen that. This is convenient. Click, I'll order that and it's to me now. So that's really only an advantage, not a disadvantage to anybody. That
Yeah,
helps the company, it helps the
I
consumer. That's
I think if you're even a repair facility, like a aftermarket repair facility, and again,
yeah,
from a technician perspective, I would be investing in predictive analysis quite a lot right now,
100%, 100%.
because once you have a vehicle in your service lane, that's an opportunity to have that car for the life of the car, right?
Definitely.
So
Yep.
if you can start to predict, almost like questions, right? If you walk in, how many
Yep.
miles do you drive a year? Well, I drive 12,000 miles a year. Okay. And you start to predict that. Okay.
Yep.
At 6,000 miles, you need an oil change. And at 6,000 miles, once your service is done, boom, there it is. Okay, we know at 80,000 miles, you're going to need, a tune-up or, wheel alignment. Okay, we can do it. And, then you just have someone pick up the phone. You can sure email them, but you pick up the phone, say, hey, we're checking out, alignment. Is there anything else? How's everything going? I think that's going to win in the future, is that kind
Yeah.
of piece of really kind of anticipating the future. People love anticipation. And I know that's how I've tried to model a lot of my professional career on, is anticipating what is going to happen. I mean, by definition, you look at that is right. How do we continue to move forward and be a leader in the space? You have to innovate. Without innovation, you are not. But I just
And
find
you have
that
to add the value. I think
yes,
you have to add value to the consumer. I don't want to be called, or I don't want to be emailed, or I don't want to be interrupted with a text during the day with some fucking nonsense that you want to
bullshit.
sell me some bullshit I don't need. But now, if you're going to interrupt my day or interrupt me from doing, playing with my son, and I think, holy fuck, that's a good interruption. You're providing me with information. This is something I need to do, or I was going to do anyway, and you're going to save me money. You're going to save me time. I can spend more time with my son. My family is safer. All this sort of stuff. That's great. Interrupt my day all day long, but not for nonsense, or don't call me and I just replaced my brakes 1 month ago, and now you're going to call me and ask me if I need new brakes. To fuck, I just did that last month. But if you're going to call me every how many months, okay, sir, just want to remind you, had an oil change 4 months ago. We have this special promotion on right now. You can save whatever money to do this and this. And Jesus, and you're looking at your speedometer and saying, yeah, you know what, or odometer, and I need, an oil change is coming up just in a few 100 kilometers. Jesus, that's great. I can save a few bucks and get this done now. Or it's all that sort of stuff. But I think consumers now are so tired of getting inundated with emails, phone calls, texts, all these different things with garbage, which is
Okay. Yeah, no, and I totally agree with you on that, Lucas. I mean, it's really about the value add and predictive analysis. And I think, but what we are going to see is I just know that there's negative connotation with a lot of your big online commerce players, margin erosion, just really not here for the betterment of the industry. And what's going to happen is that kind of experience as digital evolves, manufacturers are looking at different avenues because they want margin to stay in the pockets of industry folks. But I think, hands down, model is shifting, man. Model is shifting to where we're going to see more of a one-to-one relationship with distributors and manufacturers, almost in a two-way relationship. And I think purely because the e-tailers have done it to themselves. You know what I mean? This RockAuto model where, hey, we're just going to screw you in the pooch on margin and act like, hey, we're the big dog in town, which great. That's fine if you are. But it's not really friendly fire, right? It's not like, okay, these guys really are here for the industry. No, they're tinkers and they just kind of started, and yeah, they have a great catalog, but we'll see where it all evolves, but that's my sense on it. But as always, folks, please like and share if you like what we're doing. Reach out to us. We'd obviously happily have you on to talk a lot about your initiatives and what you do. But outside of that, Lucas, anything else that we've missed today?
No, I think that's great. No, I think that very valuable. I think to a lot of people here, and even to ourselves. Talking about these guys and just learning from them. Really, I think a lot of the e-tailers that we talk to, the smaller guys, can learn a lot from what we talked about today, and even take a look at everybody we talked about online today too, and compare with what you're doing to what they're doing, and cataloging, and all these things are vitally
Absolutely.
important.
Awesome. Right on. Awesome. Well, as always, folks, it is a pleasure to be with you today. Please reach out to us at any time. Let us know any feedback, anything you'd like for us to change, evolve, or even talk about. It is an exciting time in our industry. We are the voice of the industry. This is the Auto Trends Podcast.